Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm an immigrant who moved to this country for better opportunities. Life was going okay until a fire destroyed my apartment building, leaving me homeless and desperate. In the chaos that followed, a friend of a friend offered me a room. I was hesitant, but beggars can't be choosers, right? Before moving in, I made it crystal clear that I have several food allergies and intolerances. I emphasized that I wouldn't be sharing groceries. My new roommate nodded, saying she understood completely. The first few weeks were uneventful. I kept to myself, trying to rebuild my life after the fire. One day I was in the kitchen, carefully cutting the soft center out of a brie cheese I'd bought. I hate the crust, can't stand the smell, taste, or texture. But the creamy inside? Divine. As I was preparing my snack, my roommate walked in. Her eyes widened as she watched me meticulously remove the crust. She asked me what I was doing, not getting why I was discarding what she considered the best part. I explained that I didn't like the crust and only ate the soft center. She couldn't understand how I could waste good cheese, and I simply told her that I was trying to cut off as little as possible to get to the part I enjoy. She walked off, clearly upset. I was confused. It was my cheese, after all. Why did she care so much? Over the next few weeks, I noticed she'd spend ridiculous amounts on groceries. She'd buy fancy ingredients, cook elaborate meals, eat a tiny portion, and let the rest rot in the fridge. It was wasteful and irritating, especially since she'd complained about my cheap groceries before. One day, she approached me again. She asked if I could save the brie crusts for her. I agreed, but asked where I should put them. She suggested leaving them with the cheese, but I refused, explaining that I was worried about cross-contamination due to her carelessness with my allergies. She then proposed I use my own containers, which I also declined, citing her habit of letting food spoil. Finally, she grudgingly agreed that I could use plastic bags. I agreed, thinking it was a weird request given how much food she wasted regularly. But I started saving the crust for her in plastic bags. Surprisingly, she actually ate them consistently. For a while, things were okay. I even started being less careful when cutting the brie, leaving a bit more on the crust for her. I thought I was being nice. 2 months later, she confronted me in the kitchen. She accused me of being entitled, claiming she deserved some of the brie, not just the crust. I was dumbfounded and asked her to clarify. She repeated her demand, insisting it wasn't fair that I got all the good parts while she only got the crust. I reminded her that it was my cheese, which I had bought with my own money. She argued that as roommates, we should share. When I pointed out our agreement about not sharing groceries due to my allergies, she dismissed it, saying brie was different. She was calling me entitled for not sharing food I bought, carried home, and even took the time to save parts of for her. I told her she was right, that the situation wasn't fair. For a moment, she thought I was agreeing with her, but I clarified that it wasn't fair to me. I announced that I was done saving any part of my cheese for her and told her to enjoy her own groceries. From that day on, I stopped saving the brie crusts for her. When she tried to bring it up again, I simply told her I didn't feel like sharing anymore. As the weeks went by, I noticed her wasteful habits getting worse. She'd buy even more expensive groceries, barely touch them, and let them spoil. It was as if she was trying to prove a point, but I stood my ground. One day I came home to find her surrounded by moldy food containers in the kitchen, frantically trying to clean out the fridge. She blamed me for her excessive food purchases, claiming that if I had shared my brie, she wouldn't have had to buy all this food. I asked her how her inability to manage groceries was my responsibility. She didn't have an answer for that. A week later, she moved out, claiming she couldn't live with someone so selfish. As I watched her leave, carrying boxes of expensive, probably spoiled groceries, I realized sometimes the best revenge is simply letting entitled people face the consequences of their own actions. Now, years later, I live alone. I buy my own groceries, eat my brie however I want, and never have to deal with entitled roommates again. And you know what? The brie tastes even better now. When my wife finally got pregnant, we were over the moon. We did everything by the book. Prenatal vitamins, regular checkups, even playing Mozart to her belly. The big day came earlier than expected. It was 2 a.m. when my wife shook me awake saying her water broke. I jumped out of bed, grabbed our hospital bag, and helped her to the car. That's when things went sideways. As I was backing out of our driveway, I noticed our neighbor's car blocking us in. Now, this neighbor, let's call her Karen. She's always been a pain, constantly complaining about noise, about our lawn, about everything really. But this was a new low. I honked the horn, hoping she'd come out and move her car. After a minute, she sauntered out in her bathrobe looking annoyed. I urgently explained to Karen that we needed her to move her car because my wife was in labor and we had to get to the hospital. Karen, seemingly oblivious to the emergency, complained about being woken up at such an hour. I apologized for the disturbance but stressed that this was an emergency and pleaded with her to just move her car. Instead of complying, Karen decided this was the perfect time to bring up her complaints about our dog's barking, which she claimed had been keeping her up all night. My wife let out a groan from the passenger seat. I could see she was in pain. I tried to reason with Karen, telling her we could discuss the dog issue later, but right now I needed to get my wife to the hospital. Karen, however, insisted on discussing it immediately, accusing us of being inconsiderate neighbors. My wife was having contractions, and this woman wanted to talk about our dog? I emphasized that my wife was about to have a baby. Karen dismissively responded that she had 3 kids herself and that labor takes hours, implying we had plenty of time to address her concerns. I was about to lose it when my brother, who was staying with us to help out, came running out of the house. My brother asked what was going on, and I quickly explained that Karen wouldn't move her car and we couldn't get out. He assessed the situation and decisively told us to get in the car, saying he would handle it. He jumped into his own car, which was parked on the street. Before I knew what was happening, he gunned the engine and rammed right into Karen's car, pushing it out of the way. Karen shouted and asked what he was doing to her car. My brother yelled back that it was now her problem and told us to go. I didn't need to be told twice. I floored it out of there, leaving Karen screaming in our driveway. We made it to the hospital just in time. Our beautiful daughter was born an hour later, but the drama wasn't over. While we were at the hospital, Karen called the police, claiming my brother tried to steal her car. Can you believe the nerve? Luckily, we had security cameras installed after some petty theft in the neighborhood. They caught the whole thing on tape. When we got home with our newborn, there were police cars outside our house. I showed them the footage, explaining the whole situation. Their faces when they saw Karen refusing to move her car were magnificent. Turns out what Karen did was considered reckless endangerment. She put my wife and unborn child at risk with her petty behavior. The police arrested her on the spot. Karen faced some serious charges. She got community service, a hefty fine, and had to pay for the damage to her own car. The judge wasn't too happy about her wasting police time with false accusations either. You know, I never thought I'd be grateful for those security cameras, but they saved us from a world of trouble. My brother is the baby's godfather now. Honestly, couldn't think of anyone better for the job. My parents divorced when I was young, and I ended up living with my mom. She got this amazing apartment in the heart of our country's biggest tourist hotspot as part of the settlement. But see, my mom was never good with money. Actually, scratch that. She was terrible with money, and not just in a, oops, I overspent this month kind of way. We're talking maxed out credit cards, mounting debts, and so on. But it wasn't because we were struggling. Far from it. My mom's new husband was loaded. Like, fly to London for a shopping spree, loaded. Let's pop over to Egypt for the weekend, loaded. But somehow, some way, my mom always found a way to blow through cash faster than you can say shopaholic. I was about 15 or 16 when things really went off the rails. One day, I'm in my room, minding my own business when suddenly my mom burst in. She told me there was a lady from the office on the phone who needed to confirm my identity. She instructed me to take the phone, tell the lady my name, and confirm that I was, well, me. Feeling confused, I took the phone. A woman introduced herself as Ms. XYZ from ABC Bank and asked if she was speaking with me, using my full name. I hesitantly confirmed. The lady seemed satisfied, saying that was all she needed. Something felt off, so I asked what this was about. The bank lady explained they were setting up a credit card for me, a teenager, as a gift from my mother. Suspicious, I inquired if my mom would have access to this card and could use it on my behalf. The lady confirmed that since it was a minor's card, the legal guardian would be responsible. I protested, saying I didn't want or need a card. Before I could say more, my mom grabbed the phone from me. She assured the bank lady that my identity was confirmed and they could send her the card. The truth hit me hard. My mom, having maxed out all her own cards and accounts, was now trying to open new ones in my name. I confronted her, asking how she could do this to me when I was barely a teenager and hadn't even had a chance to build my own credit. My mom dismissed my concerns, claiming it was for my own good. When I accused her of trying to steal my identity, she brushed it off, saying it wasn't stealing if she was my mother. She then told me to go to my room because she had some shopping to do. I couldn't believe it, but at the same time, I could. This was typical of her behavior. I decided to take action. When she left the house, I called my dad and explained everything. My dad was shocked and angry. He promised to call the bank right away and put a stop to it. Within hours, he had contacted the bank, explained the situation, and put a freeze on any accounts or cards in my name. He even set up identity theft protection for me. When my mom found out, she was furious. She accused me of going behind her back, reminding me that she was my mother. I stood my ground, telling her that I was her child, not her personal piggy bank. Despite her attempts to guilt trip and manipulate me, I didn't back down. I packed a bag and went to stay with my dad. It wasn't easy. There were tears, arguments, and a lot of soul-searching. But in the end, I knew I'd made the right choice. I couldn't change my mom or her spending habits, but I could protect myself. For the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about what financial disaster was lurking around the corner. And last I heard, my mom was trying to convince her new husband to co-sign on a loan. Some people never change, I guess. But I did, and that's what matters. When I moved to the city for work, I was determined to keep that spirit alive, even if city life can sometimes feel a bit impersonal. That's why I joined our neighborhood listserv. It's an online community where people can post requests, share information, or organize events. I thought it would be a great way to connect with my new neighbors and maybe make some friends. One day, I saw a post that caught my attention. Someone was asking for help with a meal. They mentioned they were going through a tough time and could use some assistance. Without hesitation, I decided to reach out. I sent an email introducing myself and offering to bring over some food after work. I asked what kind of food they liked, wanting to make sure I got something they'd enjoy. The response I got was a list of items from the local deli. I thought, no problem, I can handle that. After work, I headed to the store. As I was picking up the items from the deli, I had an idea. Why not add a few extra things to make it a really nice meal? I mean, if this person was having a hard time, a little extra kindness couldn't hurt, right? I ended up spending about $80 on everything. It was more than I initially planned, but I figured it was worth it to help someone out and maybe make their day a little brighter. When I got to the address they provided, I was feeling pretty good about myself. I knocked on the door, excited to hand over the food and maybe chat for a bit. The door opened, and a man stepped out. He didn't look particularly happy to see me. I greeted him cheerfully, introducing myself as the person from the neighborhood listserv who brought his food. The man acknowledged this with little enthusiasm and asked to see what I had brought. As he looked through the bags, his frown deepened. He questioned me about the extra items I had included, stating that he hadn't asked for them. I explained that I had added a few things to make the meal nicer, mentioning the fruit and dessert. However, the man wasn't pleased. He complained that he couldn't eat half of the items and then asked about other things he had requested. Confused, I asked him what other things he meant, explaining that I had only seen the list for the deli items. The man informed me that he had sent another email with more requests while I was shopping and asked if I hadn't checked. Feeling embarrassed, I admitted that I hadn't seen the email as I was already at the store when he must have sent it. The man sighed heavily, clearly annoyed. He expressed his frustration, stating that half the items were unusable for him and half the things he needed weren't there. Feeling awful about the situation, I apologized profusely and offered to go back to the store to get the other things he needed. However, the man declined my offer, saying he would figure it out himself. He took the bags from me, barely mumbling a thanks before closing the door. I stood there for a moment, feeling shocked and hurt. All that effort, all that money spent, and this was the response I got? I was angry, though. I had gone out of my way to help this stranger, and he couldn't even muster up a proper thank you. It was then that I realized I had left the receipt in one of the bags. Part of me hoped he'd see how much I'd spent trying to do something nice for him and feel a little guilty about his behavior. The next day, I was still feeling down about the whole experience when my phone pinged with a new email notification. It was from the neighborhood listserv. Curious, I opened it up and was shocked to see a new post from the same man I had helped. In the post, he was complaining about how someone had brought him food, but had gotten the order all wrong and included a bunch of useless extras. He even had the audacity to say that people shouldn't offer to help if they couldn't follow simple instructions. That was the last straw for me. I decided to reply to the post, making sure to copy in all the listserv members. In my response, I identified myself as the person who had brought him food the day before. I explained that I had spent $80 of my own money trying to do something nice for him, and that I had added extras as a pleasant surprise. I clarified that I hadn't seen his additional email because I was already shopping. I expressed my disappointment in his ungrateful behavior, both in person and online. I mentioned attaching a photo of the receipt as proof of my expenditure and hoped this would serve as a reminder for him to be grateful when people go out of their way to help, even if it's not perfect. I concluded by warning others on the listserv to be careful who they choose to help, as some people don't deserve kindness. Within minutes, my inbox was flooded with supportive messages from other listserv members. Many shared their own stories of encountering entitled behavior when trying to help others. The original poster's reputation in the neighborhood was quickly tarnished, and he ended up leaving the listserv altogether. I learned that no good deed goes unpunished, but sometimes karma has a way of working things out in the end. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.